Nio in Norway. Wow. Firstly, Happy New Year, everyone. Once again, apologies for the audio quality, video quality. I'm still traveling, so I'm relying on some inferior equipment, if you like, than what I've got at home. So I'm back in Bergen after traveling up and down the west coast of Norway, all the way up to North Cape and around to Kirkenes, which is only 17 kilometres from the border. And at one point there, I was only 2,100 kilometres from the North Pole. Probably explains why it was so bloody cold. But anyway, I have got back to Bergen, and when I was walking around here before, I saw a Nio House. There's also a Porsche place and a Polestar place, and I got a couple of little shots from them as well, which you'll be seeing now. But I went into the Nio House, got my trusty camera out, and started to do a few videos. And the two people in there came up, and I said, "It's all right if I video?" And they go, "Yep, no worries. Do what you like." And we got talking, and I told them the fact that I'm from Australia. We don't have Nio there, and how impressed I was with the look of them. And so they allowed me to shoot some video inside and outside. They had two cars on show there. The ES8, which is a large SUV, which is on sale there for just over 100,000 Australian or equivalent. That's about to go up. And an ET7, I think, which is their saloon. I'll give you some of the stats on these two cars in a minute, because they're fairly impressive for what they are. Norway did have quite an excellent incentive scheme to supply EVs for people, tax-free, toll-free, etc. They do from the 1st of January, unfortunately, and they've started taxing EVs, anything over 500,000 Norwegian kroner or NOK, which is, it's about six and a bit, so that's around the $80,000 mark Australian. They're now going to tax anything over that 500,000 NOK. Unfortunate, but they've got to start reclaiming some of the funding. But before I get into the two Nio cars that I saw, and I've got a special little surprise towards the end of this video about the Nio ES8 SUV, there are so many charging bays around here in Bergen. Just walking around the street, seeing street parking, they've got car chargers. Now, there's a couple of different things that I found out. You can either park and charge, so you pay for parking and the charging is free. Now, this is all type 2 charging, so it's the slower AC version. But even so, even if it's only 3.5 kilowatts instead of 7 kilowatts, that's still quite reasonable, but you pay for your parking. Now, the other one is you charge and park. So you park for free, but you pay for the charging. And I've been speaking to a couple of the locals who've got EVs, and they were fairly happy with the pay for charging and get free parking. One guy said, "I try and come to this particular park every time because it's free parking. I can leave it here for a long time and I just pay for the charging." Now, it's around about a 10 or 20 Australian cent charge per kilowatt. And it's got something like a 50% flag fall, and it works out very, very cheap. And that certainly is cheaper than the parking fees, which seem to be quite high around here. Mind you, in Norway, everything's expensive. So if we take a first look at the Nio ET7, This is quite a nice car. They've got what's called soft touch. So you just touch the handle and the door opens. You can then pull it. And the inside, very, very comfortable. They've got the vertical screen, as you can see. And inside, in the back, is very spacious. You've got that little Google-eyed thing above the screen, which is called Know Me. So when you're in the car and say, "Hey, know me," it starts to talk to you and give you ideas and so on, and you control car features from it. It's got quite a capacious boot, and as you can see there, a little flap so that you can put your skis in, which obviously in this sort of country is very important. So you see there, just touch the handle and the door moved open slightly. You've even got a little screen at the back there in the middle for the rear passengers, but just look at the amount of leg room that those people have got. It's quite astounding. Now, there we go, touch and it opens. The steering wheel has got a slightly flattened bottom. It's got a digital display in front of the steering wheel, and sitting in it, I was impressed with its comfort. It was very, very nice. So the screen, very clear. The actual response is very good. And the one thing I've got to admit I do like is the massage seats, heated seats, and yes, it was very, very comfortable. And the other thing is, this has got a scent that you can pick from 3 scents, and it wafts out into the cabin. And my word, that was a very, very nice fragrance. You do have to refill it, obviously, after a period of use, but I thought that was quite a nice little touch. And you can adjust the fan and the temperature and so on. So some stats for the ET7. The girl who was showing me the car was fairly new there, so she wasn't too sure, but I gathered that it's supposed to have a 100 kilowatt hour battery. Now, they are installing battery swap stations in Norway. They haven't got any working at the moment, but if you lease the battery, you pay 2,000 NOK, which is about $300 per month. So if you work that out, you've got to be doing quite a few kilometres, depending upon what you're paying. But you're going to have to be doing quite a few kilometres to make it worthwhile getting a lease battery rather than purchasing it outright. But the guy who was in charge there did say something about they're bringing out a hybrid battery, and it was difficult because he was Norwegian and I don't speak Norwegian, but his idea with a hybrid battery is that it's got LFP components and nickel, cobalt, whatever else components. So you're getting the best of both worlds. And he was saying that the ET7 and the ES8 could come with up to a 150 kilowatt hour battery. And he said that's good for, in the ET7, over 1,000 kilometre range. Now, I actually think that was NEDC, and it's probably closer to 750 to 800 kilometre range. Still not too bad, though. The ET7 there only comes in the one variety, which is the top spec. 0 to 100, about 3.8 seconds or better. Top speed, 200 kilometres an hour. They're claiming efficiency of 176 watt hours per kilometre. I think it's probably going to be better than that. And they are placing that as the Tesla 3 competitor for the long range and performance. It's priced at about the same price. So if they ever bought this to Australia and prices at that price, I would imagine it would be extremely popular. So next is the Nio ES8, which is their SUV. As you can see, it's very similar inside to the ET7. It's got a slightly larger screen behind the steering wheel. It's got the same portrait central screen, and that works out to be very responsive indeed. Space in the back of the ES8 is very, very good amount of legroom you've got there. And it also happens to have 7 seats. It comes in a 6 and 7 seat version. Boot space, as you can see, is very reasonable. And if you just grab one of those handles, pull it up, you've got another seat there. Now, yeah, I'd say that's probably for a child with no legs, but you can have it as 7 seats. And obviously, if you put all seats down, you've got a huge amount of space. And there is a small under storage just there. And then they said, would you like to go out in it for a drive? And I go, what, really? And they go, yep. So the girl took me out to their underground garage, which, as you can see, has got quite a few Nio chargers reserved purely for Nio. And then further down there, this is a public car park, there were some chargers that could be used by any car, I believe. So that was quite good. And then I jumped in the car, and the girl, I said she could drive, and she jumped in, and we went off for a test drive. So here we go. As you can see, the center screen, you've got the front camera for a very short while. You've got a 360-degree view. This is all as you start to drive the car, and very quickly it goes off. But that was quite a nice little thing. And one of the things that surprised me about this car was how comfortable it is. It is extremely comfortable. The ride is certainly a lot softer compared to a Model Y. The seats, I think the suspension is softer. The seats are maybe slightly harder, but overall the ride is very, very nice indeed. So I was told that this car had got a 100 kilowatt battery, but the new one, once again, is coming out with a 150 kilowatt hour hybrid battery, which gives it a range, they are claiming, of 800 kilometers. Even if that's only 600, that's still very, very reasonable. So actually thinking about it, the 150 kilowatt hour battery, I noted on the display that it was showing 17.8 kilowatt hours per 100k, or 178 watt hours per k. Now that actually, if it's 150 kilowatt hour battery, gives it a range of over 840 kilometers. So that's pretty good. And this particular version in sport mode would do 0 to 100 in 3.6 or 3.9 seconds. I forget which, but it was still bloody fast. So then we drove for quite a way, and then the girl stuck the car in a car park and said, would you like to drive it back? well, not to upset her, I didn't want to say no, so I willingly jumped into the driver's seat and off I went. And I've got to say, I rather like this car. If they ever want to bring this Nio ES8 into Australia, I would be sorely tempted to get one. Unfortunately, as I say, I think it's going to be $150,000, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, it's very, very tempting. I would say, compared to my Model Y, this is even possibly slightly better. So here we are driving. We had it in sport mode, and I did squirt the accelerator a couple of times. And yes, very nice it was too. Certainly accelerates faster than my Model Y. My Model Y obviously is only a rear-wheel drive, so it's 6.6 seconds or something, 0 to 100. And this will do a lot more. Fortunately, the roads weren't icy because it had been raining, so it was just slightly damp. And she even went and put the massage seats back on for me. And I do like that feature. It is very, very nice. So I consider myself very lucky that I'm not Norwegian and I was Australian, and they knew that, but they were more than happy for me to go out and take a drive in this car. And I used the cruise control and their version of autopilot, which steers it around corners, and it's got its traffic aware cruise control. It was a great experience. There are some things that it's not allowed to do in Norway because of the law, and that is auto lane change and so on. So I can only assume that Teslas there are the same. And you can see that now and again, Nomi makes some odd little faces and blinks at you. It's quite animated. I think I've been told it's got 350 different faces that it can use and expressions. So it's a cute little thing, but it does actually remind you, if you're in auto drive and you take your hands off the steering wheel, it does have a go at you if you're not paying attention. It does monitor your eyes. So if your eyes aren't on the road ahead, it starts shouting at me. Now, it shouted at me in Norwegian. I got no idea what it was saying, but the girl with us told me, you've got to hold the steering wheel, otherwise you're in trouble. But overall, my impressions of this ES8, and it's certainly a bigger SUV than the Model Y by quite a way, I like very, very much. Well, there we have it. The Nio ET7 and ES8, and I even got to take the ES8 for a drive around Bergen. And I would like to thank very much the people at Nio House in Bergen. They were really very friendly, very nice, and I can't say anything more highly of them. It's just amazing what they let me do. I consider myself very privileged to have been allowed to have done that. So once again, Nio House Bergen, thank you so much. And Nio, when you're coming to Australia, please. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed making it, and I'll see you all very soon.